Hey folks, welcome to Thinking Theology. I'm Don. I'm taking a look at a short by Richard Dawkins, giving his thoughts on what happens when we die. And these shorts give enough concentrated thought content, if you will, to assess and for me to expound on my ideas about it. But I don't establish a theology on this channel. I don't establish an atheism on this channel. What I do is I take a look at the arguments being made and then just give my thoughts on what has been said. So let's see what Richard says. I'm wearing this hat. He's a Brit, and there was a Brit, an author, biologist, I think, and something else. So here we go.
What do you think happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes.
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul? None of that is. That's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral.
Yes. If by spirit or soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it. No.
Really?
Well, how could I?
Well, people who've gone through weird sort of out-of-body, near-death experiences where they've been pronounced dead for a few minutes, they always talk about, almost all of them talk about this weird...
There's a tunnel of light at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean, It could be, couldn't it?
Yes, well, read Susan Blackmore on that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know Susan Blackmore, but yeah, there's enough in there. I understand his argument, and it is very difficult to construct an argument against what Dawkins said, a definitive or a conclusive argument, put it that way. Okay, the Catholic Church wrestled with this, the notion of the immortality of the soul, and whether there's this other energy that leaves the body and goes on and remains somehow intact that keeps your personhood intact elsewhere, whether in the heavens or somewhere else. I get why people don't accept that. I have a difficult time with it myself, but I get why people do believe it, like Piers Morgan's idea that, like, what about these people who have these near-death or death experiences and then they see this tunnel and all, and perhaps that is just the shutting down of the brain, and that's what happens when it sort of is about to finally check out, and maybe there is this last gasp of energy to keep the brain alive that the the neurological system sends to it. This part I don't know. These sorts of accounts, are they interesting? On some level, yes. Are they conclusive? No, not to me. I don't discount them completely, because it's, whenever you're looking at any argument, you take in all the relevant information. And Dawkins' opinion is along the lines of the brain. We are just a brain, and not brain, but a body. And when we die, I mean, that's it. There is nothing that outlasts us, no sort of energy that keeps us intact. And that is the brain-mind, not dilemma, but discussion that you'll have in some philosophy classes. I was a philosophy major, so we would discuss certain things like this, but certainly you don't have to be a formal philosopher to study these things or think about. Anybody could think about it. But when we say that we have a mind versus a brain, what does that mean? Is that saying that there's some other part of us that's external? It's not falsifiable, as Sir Karl Popper would say, or verifiable or observable? There's some other energy that infuses our brain with impulses and goes from there? Or is the mind just another word for the brain? That would be an interesting etymological study to figure out how the word mind, or mente in Spanish and other forms of it, I think it's like nous in Greek, N-O-U-S, how that came to be. What is the concept of the mind versus the brain? And that's partly here where Piers Morgan asked him the question about, do you not believe in a soul? Well, the Catholic Church also had to account for that. Like, is there some other part of us that when the physical part dies, it lives on. Is that a product of the human imagination? Dawkins thinks yes. His response to Pierce's question, do you believe there's nothing beyond this? And he said, how could I? Now, if he was saying, logically, how could I think he's wrong. You can construct an argument. It may not be conclusive to him or others. But if he's saying, how could I, Richard Dawkins, who made a lifetime out of not believing that, believe that, then that's fair. That's a fair response. But people believe it. There are ways of believing it. It's just what you believe. Everybody has a different standard of proof or a threshold of proof for what they're willing to accept. When we watch movies, we have a, whether it's Monty Python or anybody, we have a willful suspension of disbelief. Like we look at scenes and we say, well, it couldn't happen that way, or he couldn't jump up on that building. But we suspend our disbelief to go along with it. We're creative people. Somebody created that movie creatively, and we watch it and we go along with the storyline. Did we make up the idea of heaven? Atheists think clearly. I don't have a problem if people believe in an afterlife. I don't have a problem with people who don't. Neither can be absolutely refuted, neither can be absolutely proved. It's just a matter of belief. And I think if we represented ourselves that way, like the way Dawkins was presenting himself here, is more along my style of argumentation, where he wasn't being offended. He wasn't saying people are stupid who believe it. Maybe he has said that elsewhere. I'm going to do more Dawkins stuff. And maybe he is a bit more acerbic in his critique of spiritual views. Maybe. I don't know. That I don't like the acerbity or the aggression on either side. I mean, fundamentalist Christians generally are accused of this, and rightly so, in my opinion, of being over the top. If you believe something, represent yourself as believing it. But if you come across and say, this is absolutely right, and if you disagree with me, you're wrong, that's an unfair treatment of another person and what they believe. Anyhow, that's my take. All right, guys, leave your thoughts on that. It's a broad topic. All right, have a great day. I'll see you on another video, and keep thinking theology.